right, AFTERSHOCKS TV, Matt and Chris back with you guys, and we got a real good one for you today, folks. Joining us on this episode is a guy that most of you will recognize as one of the two voices from legendary New York hardcore metal sensations Biohazard, and he's here today to talk about his band's sophomore release titled Leaders and Liars. It comes out March 25th on AFM Records. Let's welcome to the show from Billy Bio, Mr. Billy Graziadei. What's going on, Billy? Thanks for coming on with us, man. How are you?
It's great to be here, man. Sorry to turn the phone off. Great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Of course, man. So let's get into it, man. Leaders and Liars. Follow up to 2018's Feed the Fire. You got 3 singles and videos out there so far. The most recent one being Blackout that came out earlier the month. And I mean, musically, you know, although on this album it still has, you know, those classic New York hardcore anthems, you know, tracks like Generation Kill and One Life to Live. To me, this record, I think, has more of a metallic feel and vibe to it. It's a bit more slow to mid-tempo with tracks like Blackout and Turn the Wounds, where I thought Feed the Fire was definitely more of a straight-up hardcore, you know, sounding, classic hardcore sounding record. So I guess just tell us about, you know, what you were going for musically on the record and what you wanted to do differently, if anything, than what you did on Feed the Fire.
So, dude, I think you nailed it on the head. So my it's no secret. My influences were obviously hardcore, punk rock, and metal, and with Biohazard, the hip hop too was a big thing. So there's always going to be a little bit of Biohazard in everything that I do. Mm-hmm. This record I think it even has more Biohazard, but it's a heavier record. I think every record that any band that I ever loved for Biohazard was Urban Discipline, Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth, except Agnostic Front. I think Agnostic Front, the first record, Victim in Pain, that's the one that grabbed me. But the second record of every artist is when you really cut your teeth on your first record. You're touring, you're spending time together in a band and around the world. But that second record is a culmination of that relationship, that growth. And that's when a band really fucking shows the meat and potatoes. Sorry to curse, but
you can.
The meat and potatoes are what you're made of, you know?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so this record, to me, I guess for Biohazard was Urban Discipline. For me, Leaders and Liars is that second evolution, that second chapter in Billy Bio that nails it for me. You know, sure, I took everything that I liked and tried to multiply it by 1,000 with this record.
Sure, no doubt. Yeah, and one of the other differences too I hear between both of the records really is the lyrical tone and just the overall feel of the record. I mean, Feed the Fire was a very, you know, to me, an uplifting and really positive record. Leaders and Liars is still very positive, but it definitely has a bit more of I'd say a darker, serious feel to it. I mean, you sound a little more, I guess, maybe, you know, pissed off on this one. I mean, tracks like Fallen Empires and Lost Horizon are just a few that stand out to me, which I would think is, you know, kind of to be expected, especially what we've been going on over the last, you know, 2 years in the world. So, I mean, I guess talk a bit about, you know, the headspace that you were in when you were writing and recording these songs. I mean, was it kind of difficult to keep that real positive, you know, I guess, outlook on things that you normally write about because of all the menace that we've been, you know, going through the last few years? Because I mean, even for the most, you know, optimistic of people, it's definitely a challenge to do so in today's, you know, social environment.
Yeah, I consider myself an optimist, and it took me a long time to get there. But I think one of the things you're not going to hear about in the new record is the pandemic. You know, we all went through this crazy shit, and the minute we take off our fucking masks, then we're facing World War III, which is fucking the whole of the nightmare subject. It's sad, but this record is, I think, a great cross section of where my head is at, who I am. Like most of my music, it's it's just a mirror of my world and what I see. I got a little deeper. I suffered from, probably like most people. The more people I talk to, I'm like, oh yeah, me too. But I've been battling depression my whole life. I never chose to level out with drugs and like Prozac, and it works for people, family, and friends. But for me, that swing of emotions, it's like life. Life is not always fucking good. It's not always fucking bad. So you just got to roll the punches. And I try to over the years during this record, I kind of realized that that swing is the fuel for my creativity. When I'm down, I'm way more prolific creatively. And then, I'll be working on something. I come home from the studio at 2 a.m. and I wake my wife up. I'm like, babe, let me play this for you. It's the fucking best I ever wrote. Holy fuck. And she's like, really? It's fucking 2 o'clock. And then she shuts me off. I go downstairs and I just chill out, and I'm up until 4 or 5 in the morning bouncing off the walls because it swung into this manic thing, and I get high off of that for a bit. But my point is the ups and downs of life, and I've always done this, from Biohazard to POWERFLO, Billy Bio, Suicide City, Blue. I try to bring you there, and not bring you, but I try to let that kind of naturally emulate what I see in life and what I experience in life. So that's where the ups and downs of the record comes from. But the subject matter, though, you touched on, Matt, I spent a lot of my time. There's a song on the record called "Looking Up," and I would say probably 80% of my life, I was carrying around this fucking dark anger, sadness inside, and I covered it up and hid it for a long time. But the reality was that it was all this shit that I thought I had dealt with from a kid. Losing my mother when I was young. Growing up, we all had tough shit. I'm not going to complain, and I'm happy. I think that what I went through brought me to where I am and who I am today. But I met my wife, and she helped me see a lot of things that made my life way more optimistic. So, and I'm looking back, it's funny, the other day I had this realization. Looking back, all my writing has always been about darker sides, darker feelings, darker emotions, about subjects that aren't so uplifting and nice to talk about. But there was always some kind of silver lining. There's always something. And that underlying theme is survival. And also, and this is fucking funny, I swear, all my buddies and friends out there who know me for the hard music that I create, they're fucking love songs. I can look at every fucking song in my career, and if you believe in something with passion and honesty and authenticity, it's out of love. So maybe that's maybe the next record I should go in that theme. But there's something in it for everybody. I think that somebody asked me the other day, is it become harder? A lot of musicians, they find it harder to express themselves, the more they do it and the more they've been in this business. But it's not a business for me. It gets easier.
Sure.
To me, I don't sit down. I think you touched on this too. I don't sit down and say, okay, let's write a heavier record. Let's write a faster record. Let's write a more aggressive, or let's write a more melodic record. My shit is it's pure emotion in the sense of it's in the moment. I don't worry about deadlines. I don't worry about, trying to, does this song fit with that, with this song? Does this song fit with Billy Bio or Biohazard or POWERFLO? Is this too much like this? I don't give a fuck about that. It's real. I let it flow. I shut out the whole world. Everything, nothing else exists except that moment. And with that focus, I'm able to create music that I feel represents me 100%. And then at a point, and I love this point when it happens with every record, there comes a point when you have a collection of songs, and then bam, that fucking jumps off the table and says, yo, I'm Leaders and Liars. And a title comes out, all these ideas start flowing off of that moment. But it's an ongoing creative process. And not to ramble, sorry, I know it's probably a lot of questions. It's an ongoing process. So I don't stop and say, okay, time to work on Leaders and Liars. There's some stuff that just wasn't ready in the past. There's songs on Feed the Fire. There's a song called, the title track, in fact, on Feed the Fire. I released a version of me playing that with Danny and Bobby. I showed the guys the song. We jammed it. I sang a little bit on it, and I put it out on an EP after Feed the Fire came out. So that was like a beginning of a Biohazard song. There's this chorus of Blackout you mentioned. I remember showing that to Danny and Bobby, and they're like, yo, that's a fucking great chorus. I'm like, yeah, it's not there yet, though. It's still like fermenting. And sometimes songs come out. I remember writing fucking What Makes Us Tick by Biohazard. And I spent less time writing the song than I did, than the song is the length of the song. So sometimes shit just comes out. You just got to go with it. And for me, I think it's more important to focus on the idea and kind of not really worry about who's going to like it, what does it fit, what style is it, or anything like that. In the end, it's like you take a big jump big fucking mound of clay that's inside of me, and I take it out and I kind of shit it out, and it comes out in different forms, and I look at them like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. And they all, like I said, they all seem to magnetize and form this picture that right now it's called Leaders and Liars. So
no doubt. Well, Billy, you know, I want to build off that a little bit, just because saying that and saying how you do that organically, is that a now thing? Because I hear it here, like and especially here where you've explored different styles, where you've, you know, you're not just doing hardcore stuff. But if you go to most of the Biohazard catalog, it's Biohazard, start to finish. It's all kind of one style that was all yours. Do you feel a freedom now that you didn't feel in Biohazard? Did you feel that Biohazard had to sound like Biohazard, where now you just have more freedom to do whatever you want?
That's a great question. And by the way, when you're talking serious, that picture behind you is so awesome. I'm like, that's great. It's Mardi Gras, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
So, yeah, dude, it's funny because I love, and that's why I go by Billy Bio. Like I had this band with Jen from Kitty, and Carl and AJ from Ghost Fight, Danny LaMagna from Now He Plays with Agnostic Front, and it was called Suicide City. Loved what we did with that project, but during that time, I didn't want the record labels talking about Biohazard. I didn't want to exploit what I did with Biohazard to use that for Suicide City promotion. So I forbid everybody to talk about Biohazard. It was like, that's it. It's something new. I don't want people to like us because of our past, even with Kitty. So, but after that, I realized, you know what? This is who I am.
Right.
I'm a product of everything. It's like Billy Bio is like an umbrella of everything. It's a little bit of a lot of Biohazard. And each thing is like a chapter in my life as an artist. When I'm dead and gone, hopefully people will look back and say, wow, he had all these different things, and there's probably going to be new things in the future. But Billy Bio gives me the license to not have to worry about being, fitting in a groove or a box. With Biohazard, we never worried about that either. We were more like, fuck you. We do what we want to do. And I remember every time I played piano, every record, there was people, and Bobby and I would do these acoustic piano pieces. People were like, "It's not hardcore." I'm like, "Fuck, it is." Yeah, it is. You could do what the fuck you want. That's what fucking hardcore is.
Right.
So we kind of we didn't try to, but we unintentionally broke molds that way. But with Biohazard, Chris, it was like we have a it's like we call it a meat grinder, right? Mm-hmm. It's like and so I also felt like I was a solo artist all along. Somebody after the first Billy Bio record came out, somebody said, they posted online and said, "What, you wait 25 years to do a fucking solo record?" But it was funny, and I laughed, and I realized, songs like Punishment or shit or Tales from the Hard Side, What Makes Us Tick, even Business, I had like demo versions of those songs finished. I would bring them into the guys, and it was just always my way of writing. Like I like to see my vision come to a full, a full end, and hang it on the wall and look at it. After with Biohazard, it was like we would put it once whoever brought the idea in, because the Biohazard was a sum of the whole of the parts, and the whole is a sum of the parts with Biohazard. So we were all equally involved, but we would all put our 2 cents into it, and then it became a Biohazard song. And I always wondered and I have versions of those songs that I wrote with Biohazard, classic songs that I don't know, I don't think they would have had the attention that they got if we all didn't add our flavors to it. But it's like, and not to ramble, it's like fucking being a painter, and you paint a painting, you have this vision in your head, you put on canvas, you put it on the wall. You don't invite your buddies over to give them beer and say, in a paintbrush, say, "Hey, go ahead, change what the fuck you like." You don't like it, change it. Yeah. I like that about Biohazard. I love that about different bands that I've been playing with, but I like the purity of my idea seeing the light of day.
Sure.
And I like leaving it that way.
Sure.
So I enjoy both sides. And to answer your question.
Okay. Yeah. Do you feel then, and you just sparked this, do you feel then that maybe you would have been better suited to call the post-Evans stuff Billy Bio? Because like you said, the sum of the parts made Biohazard. You lost a pretty major part there at that time. You replaced them well, but does it, when you hear it now, does it feel to you as the creator, as the guy in Biohazard, does it feel like Biohazard?
Well, 100%. No,
Okay.
no apologies, no regrets. And with the thing, what happened with Evan, he split from us. We were working on a record. We did a reunion with Bobby, and for Danny and I, we were always like, yo, if Bobby ever gets his shit together, no, not if, when he gets his shit together in a fucking heartbeat, we're back together. And it happened. It just took way longer than we wanted.
Right.
But that was 2008, and we toured around the world, had a fucking great time. Evan was on his trip doing his thing, which, you know, to each his own. But he was kind of, he enjoyed it for a while. He got involved in some personal stuff that's private, and he split the band. He quit. That kind of left us high and dry in the middle of making a record, because after that reunion, we were like, yo, it's working. This is great. We're back together again. We all got our shit together. We like what we do. We love being on stage. We love touring, and let's do it. So we went in the studio and worked on a new record. That we ended up calling that record Reborn Defiance.
Right.
Evan split in the middle of that record, and we did have a crossroads. We were like, you know what? He's not in the band anymore. He's done. He quit. Should we continue, you know, with him on the record, or should? And bands have done this. I remember Anthrax went through it.
Mm-hmm.
Van Halen. Not to put ourselves in that level, but we decided that the reunion and Reborn Defiance were one thing, and we waited for a long time to get back together as the four original guys for Biohazard. I don't know where to look. If I should look at your picture over here.
No, you're good. You're good.
So, we decided to keep Reborn Defiance as the record that we wrote together, the four of us, and let that be as it is. When we went on tour, we got Scott in the band. Scott was fucking killer. It was great. It was just fucking an awesome time, an awesome moment for the band after Reborn Defiance. And there were times that we were like, wow, man, it would have been great to have Scott sing these songs on the record, but it is what it is. It was water on the bridge. We made a decision. We stuck with it, and I still stand behind it. If something will probably happen in the future, we still talk often. I saw Evan at a memorial for our friend Scott Koenig, rest in peace, who passed away. And it was great to see him. Bobby, you know, Bobby and Danny and I talk. And Bobby just sent me a text the other day about Turn the Wounds that you mentioned earlier. And he was like, he said, dude, great fucking song. What an arrangement. Love the melodies. And the video is fucking amazing. Good for you. Go for it. And it was great to hear that, to hear your brother give you support. Danny always comes and plays. The last time we were in New York, I was there with Life of Agony, and Danny came up on the stage and did a couple songs, which was fucking awesome.
Nice.
So there will be something in the future. When that is, Biohazard was never a band that made plans. It was a vibe thing. It's like the planet, you know, when people talk about when the planets align and blah, blah, blah. It's Biohazard is kind of like that. Not in a hooky way, but it's just like we all do our thing. I'm pretty much the only guy that's active making music and putting it out. But when it's right, it's right. So
cool.
Sure. No doubt.
I like this ticker at the bottom. That's awesome. You
Oh,
guys
yeah.
got it together, man. I can't wait to share this.
Nice.
Nice.
She's a journalist. You're gonna love it.
Nice.
Are we live? We're live.
That's all good.
Come on,
It's
guys.
all good.
I'm going to she's a ticker. Cool, right?
Cool. Well, Billy, you know, I mean, speaking of Biohazard, I mean, you know, you guys, you know, we're always obviously well known for your urban anthems and prowess. I mean, to me, nobody in hardcore or music in general painted a picture of the, you know, New York City streets better than you guys did. I mean, I know the Cro-Mags, they kind of started that and led the way, but I really think you guys took it to another level. And the other thing that Biohazard, to me, did better than anyone else, that really never gets talked about much, because you guys were essentially the only ones that were singing about this back then, was talking about what we see today with this evil and corrupt media. And those tracks are even more, I think, relatable today than ever. I mean, Howard Beach, which is one of my, you know, all-time favorite Biohazard songs, we see examples of that same thing in the media landscape almost every single day. Black and White and Red All Over, another great song about the fake media and how they create narratives of division. And now you've got Turn the Wounds, which obviously on this record hits upon that a little bit as well. And those songs from the early days were before, obviously, the internet and social media were around. I mean, it was just the mainstream news media. So now it's just even more out of control. As a guy, you know, who's been, you know, following and writing about the corrupt media for decades, I mean, is it vindicating to see that, many are now, starting to wake up to what you've been trying to tell people for years through your music? Or is it even more frustrating knowing that, you've been writing about this for years, and for the most part, majority of people still can't simply see past what's right in front of their eyes, when we know all this, a lot of it's just mostly, propaganda, and has been for decades. I mean, how do you feel about, this media landscape now, and compared to what you've been singing about and talking about for years?
Well, a little bit of both, dude. I think the record, there's a song called Enough on the record that's it's like a tongue-in-cheek song, but there's a line that says, I think you just need a hug. But there's the cancel culture, and I think the bottom line is respect. Everything, it's got to come down to just people got to respect each other and have different, that we have different views, and that's cool. That's what makes our country fucking awesome. That you can have those different views. Mm-hmm. I don't want to live in a world where everybody loves Agnostic Front, Cro-Mags, Metallica, and fucking Minor Threat. I love those bands, but if everybody liked the same fucking bands, it would be boring. Or if everybody liked Brazilian food, there'd be no fucking, there'd be no fucking Italian food. So that whole line is a slippery fucking slope. So I deal with that on the record. Like I said, I mentioned Enough. Generation Kill has to do with even more so in cancel culture. But the line, black and white and red all over, you mentioned, it's so fucking true. The shit is happening. It's not like I told you so. But even songs like Uncivilization, title track, is about population control. And call me a fucking paranoid freak, and you can say, age is what it is. But I think there's a strong, there's evidence out there that things are being manipulated in the world through the media and through other means. And we haven't learned anything from the pandemic, is that the leaders are fucking liars, man. It's all about that fucking joke. How do you tell if a politician's lying? His fucking lips are moving. So the whole pandemic, I mean, think about it. I planned on not, this is the only thing I planned on the record. I didn't talk about the pandemic. I did enough of that in the past. I'm from a band called fucking Biohazard. So I don't need to go there. We all went through the same shit. And now I'm sick again. So, but the one thing we all taken away from the pandemic is, how the fuck can this happen? Have a bunch of people go, holy fuck, we didn't think this would happen. We're not planned. There's no plan. And have the stories change so fucking much every day. And you're trying to be, as a leader of the household, you're trying to be strong for the family. And it's just like, I don't know, I had like years of sobriety, right? And my wife pretty much every day during the pandemic, she said, babe, who knows if we're going to fucking die tomorrow? Have a fucking beer. I said, no, babe, it's not my thing. I can't. It's my choice. This is how I want to live, blah, blah. And she kept harping on me. And eventually I was like, you know what? Give me a fucking beer. And so you can't take life too seriously, but you got to you can't keep your head stuck in the fucking sand like an ostrich. Right. The media will fucking eat you alive. You don't know what to believe. If there's left and right, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. I think that extreme political views in the world just divide us more than ever. And that, touching that with leaders and liars, there's no good in that. People, the friends that I have that have that one side hate the other ones that vote on the other side, and the friends that vote on the other side don't give a fuck what the other ones vote for. So all that does is it stops people from sitting at the same fucking table and having fucking a beer, piece of pizza, or fucking coffee. And that does not look what happened in fucking Ukraine. This day and age, we haven't learned over the years that you can sit across the table from each other and find a way to make both everybody happy. That's crazy. So anyway, not to go.
Well, no doubt, and definitely, and the thing is too. I mean, just getting back to really to the music part in connection with this. A lot of this is sort of seeped into obviously the music scenes, and including the hardcore scene. For instance, like, one of the, reasons Biohazard was such a legendary name was because of, you guys had like a mystique as a band. I mean, you know, which is so different now. I don't really see bands having that, you know, mystique. And it doesn't have to be. I mean, Biohazard was always known. I mean, grew up in New York. I mean, it was a badge of honor if you went to a Biohazard show and you came home with no broken bones. You know, you did a good job. You know, I mean, because those were. I mean, I remember my buddy Mando years ago was like, dude, that's the only show he was ever scared at was to get into a pit at a Biohazard show. You know, but then on the flip side, you know, you had also like you know, the youth crew and you had Youth of Today, right? That was more of a positive mystique. It didn't have to be a tough, you know, violent mystique. But they had a positive mystique, and you know, those bands and scenes were movements. You know, where I think to me, the movement it just isn't really, you know, there anymore. I know a lot of that has to do with sort of scenes aren't really centralized anymore. I mean, because of the internet. But I mean, you know, I mean, back then, people wanted to contribute to the scene out of the love for the music and just the whole community of it. I mean, for instance, even myself, when I moved to LA in the mid 2000s, you know, I started up a label. Actually, I signed and put out a record by a band I know you know real well, the band Count Time there in LA. And, you know, to me, that's what, you know, hardcore did is it, you know, it made you want to be a part of it in some capacity. I mean, what do you see in terms of, you know, the passion from the younger fans and musicians due to all the political environment that's unfortunately kind of seeped into a lot of the scene as well?
That's a great question, dude. And when we were off the air, I'd love to talk to you about the label and Count Time. Sure. Guys, Count Time is a band that I produced during the pandemic, and also the new Cutthroat is about to come out, and that's fucking killer. So on the record, there's a song called Our Scene, and it kind of just really just hit the nail on the head with that song. Our Scene is about, for me, it's about just that. When we're coming up, for me, and I think a lot of people probably feel the same. You feel like, you know, you're in a school with a bunch of people that you're friends with, no disrespect, but you feel like you just don't click with. There's something about it, and sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's like, you know what, I like to play football, but these dudes who play football are a bunch of fucking douchebags, and I don't get along with them. Or I like to play soccer, and I get along with these guys, you know, at practice on the field, but you know, there's something just not clicking. I always felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I was an outcast. Like there was, and I'm not like woe was me, but the great fucking thing is the minute I found the fucking underground music scene, I fucking felt like I was part of a family. I felt alive. I felt like I could be myself. I felt among friends. And Our Scene is about finding that family. And you could call it whatever you want. You can call it the hardcore scene. You can call it the punk scene, the metal scene. But it's that feeling of belongingness that we all found. And Biohazard came up at a time when the scene in New York was so segregated and separated, and it wasn't really like it was so cliquey that the straight edge kids hung out together and the fucking metal kids hung out together. The kids who kind of like hip hop kept it quiet, but they liked hardcore, and everybody kind of stuck to their own cliques, and it was like Biohazard was like the outsider, you know, the kind of like, you know, the redheaded stepchild who kind of like, we kind of said, you know what, we like everything, and this is what we sound. We kind of take all those influences, and it's cool to like fucking hip hop and fucking hardcore, sure, or be straight edge and like Slayer. And that was our thing. I think that's what people liked about us, that we weren't trying to create something new. We were just regular four dudes who were totally different but kind of similar. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't about style. It wasn't about wearing 8-ball jackets or baggy jeans or whatever and shit like that. It was just more about fucking being yourself. That underlying theme, and people always ask me a similar question. They say, how do you think about the scene? And it's changed so many years so drastically. No, it hasn't. It evolves. It goes up and down like this and that. But that feeling when you finally found your family and you're at a fucking show and you look around and you feel like you're relaxed and as tense as it may be at a hardcore show or whatever, in the pit or on the sidelines, you feel at home. And that feeling was the same at 1988, 1998, 2008, 2018, and it's going to be like that forever. So the scene, and that's what I love about it. That's why I feel most comfortable when the world is open and there's shows and you can go. I like that feeling. We all like it. That's why we continue to support the underground music scene, because we feel we're part of a family, and that. So it's a long description of a song called "Our Scene," but sorry.
No, it's all good, man.
That's without coffee.
well, dude, obviously, man, you have this great new release, Leaders and Liars. It is out March 25th. It is Billy Bio. And Billy, as always, man, it's great to chat with you, man. And we could do this for hours and hours, man. It's definitely great to catch up with you, my friend.
I appreciate it too, man. And I'm here. You don't have to cut me off. I don't know if you guys got to go, but
oh no, all right.
Oh, no.
If you got more questions, hit me up.
Okay, because we were told it was a 30-minute thing. So
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
well,
Oh, my dad. It's because of the schedule. There's somebody else waiting to talk to me, but I was probably a little bit late getting to you, and you get all my attention. And my thing is this, guys, and I'm a humble dude. I'm so appreciative that you guys take the time and help me share. Look at this. I love that artwork. Oh, by the way, I'm about to announce this, but I have limited amount of versions of gold vinyl, and we did a 1 through 50 hand numbered versions of that artwork printed with the gold vinyl. And I'm going to be announcing that on my social media probably as soon as I get back from celebrating St. Patty's Day.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Nice, man.
What else you got for me?
Well, dude, I'll be honest, man. I think the reason Matt and I both were excited to talk about you is we both have experiences with your band. I'll say this. I've said it forever on the radio and wherever. Second best show I've ever seen. And to be clear, the first best show I ever saw as a legendary one was The Day on the Green with Metallica in 91. So that was first. But second best show I ever saw, and it was intense. And you talk about getting beat. This is the only time I ever got hurt in the pit, was when it was Biohazard, Sepultura, and Pantera at Richfield Coliseum in Cleveland, and got the living shit kicked out of me and wouldn't have had it any other way, man. I mean, that's always been you guys' thing, though, is it always, to me anyway, as somebody that's seen Biohazard now 15 times or whatever, it always seemed to me like you always, when you guys hit the stage, you literally hit the stage with something to prove. Even though you had nothing to prove for most of the times that I saw you, you guys came out ready for war, man, not ready to entertain. And I think that's what separated you guys. What was your approach going into shows? Because you guys were always so goddamn fierce.
You know, I say this a lot on stage now. If you go to a show and you don't see the motherfuckers sweating like pigs, ask for a fucking refund, because you have to give it your all, man. If you're not there believing what you're doing, why do it?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense, and that's always been my approach. It's cathartic. I get on stage, I walk off feeling like I just went through the fucking washer. Everything that was bothering me before, even though the issues and problems are still there, it's like therapy. And I've gotten that my whole life from being in the pit or just going to shows. And we all can relate to that. That pressure that builds up, you got to release it. And sometimes, fucking tying one on with your friends works. Sometimes for me, it was always going to shows and being on stage, and those two things. Without them, also jujitsu. Jujitsu is a big thing, but that's a different subject. The that release of energy is important. We all bullshit at home, family life, job life, school, all crazy shit, and we love that. That's another thing about the scene that release it gives you. You're there with a bunch of people that have the same pressures, and you just you unleash it. You walk home, you're like, cool. Now I'm not going to strangle my dog.
Right. No question, man. Well, nobody's going to be strangling their dog if they check out this new release. Leaders and Liars. It is March 25th. It is Billy Bio. And Billy, this has been great, man. It's been fun chatting with you, my friend.
Guys, thank you for the time and support. Appreciate you both.
When it's time to rock, it's time to tune in to Crash Course Radio. Featuring the very best of the heavier music, from Slayer to Clutch to Fear Factory, it's all in one place, Crash Course Radio. To tune into Crash Course Radio, simply visit www.cmsradio.net. You can also tune in on the CMS Network app by opening the app, clicking the musical notes at the top right corner, and selecting Crash Course Radio from our stations. All the best heavy music is there, so you should be too. Ditch the commercial radio and make Crash Course Radio your everyday station.